dual degree in business and computer science. Currently, software engineer at a company called Scale. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Connie.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Connie. I'm currently doing a dual degree in computer science and Ivy, or business. And I've previously worked at both Twitter and Lyft as a software engineer.
Yo, we got a stacked lineup today. William, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hey everyone, my name's Will. I'm also doing a dual degree with business and computer science. And in the past, I've worked 5 software engineering internships, and currently I'm interning at Coinbase.
Sick. Okay, Matthew.
So sorry. Yeah, so my name's Matthew. I graduated last year. Well, this year, in April. I was doing a software engineering and Ivy dual. And I interned at Asana before. And now I'm at this company called Figma.
Let's go. Okay. So I just have a couple questions to kind of go through today. For you guys watching, or the guests, if you'd like to drop any questions in chat, I will have time at the end of today to answer them. And for the panelists, like, just feel free to unmute whatever question you want to answer. It's very chill. Cool. So I guess to get us started off, is what kind of made you guys go into the software like career? Like, did you guys have any hobbies growing up that kind of led you to want to code, or whatever? Like, what kind of led you to go into the 𝗲 career path? Yeah. Anyone can go.
I guess I can go first. My very authentic response is that in high school, I searched up, what are the highest paying jobs in Canada? And software engineering is kind of what popped up. I didn't take any courses in high school for computer science until grade 12, but it kind of like made sense to me. So that's why I ended up pursuing computer science. So yeah, the first aspect would be money. After I started interning at some of these companies, I learned that I also liked having autonomy over my schedule, because in software engineering, it's typically more like results driven. So you don't have to work like, 12 hours a day, something like that. So yeah, that's kind of what drove me towards software engineering.
I guess I can go next. Yeah, so I think initially I was planning on going to aerospace engineering. But I think the problem with doing some of the more like physical engineering is that like the feedback cycle is not as fast. So like a lot of times you can't like test things and then like get the results right away. A lot of times you can't even like do the initial test because it costs like thousands of dollars to like make things. But software was very, I think that's just how I started doing it, and the more I started doing it, the more I ended up liking it.
Nice.
I can go next. My answer is kind of similar to William's in that I wanted to make money. But in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I guess I kind of know what I want to do now. But I was always like, decent at math and science. So I was like, yeah, I want to be a doctor, like every other Asian immigrant child always wanted to be, because I was no good at English. And then I did an internship in research, and I was like, wow, this sucks. Well, why is everything so damn slow? And then somehow I took a computer science class, and I really enjoyed it, and it took me here.
Yeah. I guess I'm last. Yeah, money is definitely always a motivating factor. Like, you kind of can't avoid that part of the formula. But it's just also cool to like know how like kind of code works. Like, everybody uses all these things throughout their day, whether it's like a phone or a computer. And kind of opens up this entire different world of like, if you can know how to read all this stuff and know how they work, gives you like a better sense of like kind of how these like mechanics, I guess, play in your life and kind of shape like the future and the society you live in. Yeah, not to get too deep.
No, I fully agree with that. Yeah, it's pretty cool to like know how to code, I feel like. And sometimes like walk into McDonald's and you see the screen, like this is how the display works and like this is how the UX was coded or designed. So it's pretty interesting to like see it in action in everyday life. That kind of leads on to like another question would be like, are there any interesting or cool projects right now that you guys are working on? I guess if it's confidential, you can't really say, but just anything interesting or any cool projects that you guys are currently a part of? All right, it's okay if you guys all have boring jobs.
I can talk about what I do. It might be boring still, but I can talk about it. Yeah, so I'm on an infrastructure team. My team makes basically GraphQL, but a lifetime version of it. I think it was the same team Andrew worked on as an intern at Asana, but now it's at another company. So yeah, I think it's just whenever like updates come to the database, like they get streamed in to all the clients who are watching for like subscriptions.
Pretty cool.
I guess, okay, I guess I could go next. I guess like something that I'm interested in is like, since my company deals with like AI kind of products and stuff, the whole LLM like environment and all the buzz that's been going on is really interesting. Just as like someone who just is interested in AI, I think anybody could just like play around with like these tools and like kind of be blown away by like what AI can do nowadays. So that's been kind of interesting to follow. Subsequently, I think like the kind of Twitter's just been like, just Twitter as a topic and just like Web3 nowadays is like kind of also fun to follow. So I think it's like a lot of cool stuff going on in tech, for better or for worse.
Kind of you're mentioning a lot of AI. I personally don't actually know fully what scale AI still does. Like, do you mind giving a bit of a background summary just on scale AI?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what we do either, to be honest, because it changes every day. But I guess like the sales pitch is that like companies come to us with like needs, like data needs, and then we kind of have to like solve it. I think like the best analogy for scale AI that I've heard before, and that like is pretty apt, is like we're kind of like an AI garage. So like all these companies come to us and are like, okay, we need something built and we can't really get it like off the line somewhere else. And like it's not available open source or whatever. Okay, like you got to make this solution. And that could be just like data or like an AI solution, like an NLP solution or something, and like it gets built. So I think that's kind of like how I would describe it. Yeah.
Gotcha. William, Connie, do you guys have any cool projects, or I can move on to something else? Okay, that's okay. I'm curious. Have you guys made any major mistakes yet at where you've worked at so far? Like any mistakes that you've learned from, I guess. That's it.
Well, I can start because I have made a lot of mistakes. Unfortunately, I have not brought down Twitter and or Lyft, which is really sad. I feel like I never got that intern rite of passage. But major soft skill mistake that I first made while I was at Twitter was asking too many questions. Like usually the advice you get when you start a software engineering internship is ask like all your questions to your mentor. So I took that very literally and I asked really stupid Googleable questions to my mentor, because at Twitter, everything used to be remote. So my mentor would talk to me very async. So I would get a response like once every 3 hours or so. So once they were online, I was like, okay, what other questions can I ask them right now while they're here? So obviously you should still ask as many questions as you can because they gave you a mentor for you to use, but make sure that you ask decently, not stupid questions. Like show that you have some kind of research before you go in and you ask that question. Like even if you don't understand something, tell them, oh, this is the research that I know, like that I did, but I still don't understand this thing, instead of just saying, I don't understand this, because then that shows them that you at least tried. And obviously when I did it, it seemed that I didn't. So that was great.
Yeah, I totally get that. If you can't find something in Stack Overflow, just ask the manager. Definitely. You guys have any mistakes you want to share?
Yeah, I guess one thing that I noticed is like, yeah, it's probably let your users know when you make a change, and then let them know ahead of time if we make that change, and then it kind of ruins like their life. So like, I mean, at like my work, like we have like kind of like people that like label like data for us, and like yeah, I made a bunch of changes before, and they kind of like ruined entire like pipelines and stuff, and they were getting kind of mad. But yeah, I think that's like a simple rule that you don't really realize that like when you like make changes in code, like there are end users that get affected by it that like don't have the same context as you do. And I think like that's like just something that you have to realize, is that like the context you have is not shared like with everybody else, even if you are like the newest person on a team or like at a company. Like just because you know something doesn't mean like other people do. So communication is key.
Definitely.
I guess I can go next. I think in terms of like breaking things. I think one time at I mean I haven't broken anything at Figma yet because I just haven't done much. So but at Asana, I think one time I pushed something on a Friday, and like this is like never push something on a Friday. And I think I got some page that like my change is like the last PR that like whatever. And it was a very stressful like Friday night when it didn't need to be. And like we rolled back and everything, but it was like I don't even know if it was related to my change at this point. I just wanted my Friday, so just roll everything back and like figure it out on Monday. But it's also like most things you can just push out on Monday. I think that's like general advice.
Generally, do you just never push things out on Fridays then at anywhere?
I mean, I just generally don't push things.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, for me on my end, I think I used to make this mistake a lot, and that's when I'm given a problem, I just go straight into solving it. Like I just start coding right away. And I found that when I used to do that, I would come across issues and I would spend maybe like hours trying to debugging it, where I could have prevented that by planning out my code beforehand with pseudocode. And I found that after doing that, I could probably solve the problem within like maybe 1 hour in comparison to like a whole day.
Gotcha. It's pretty good advice. So us software engineers, obviously you're working alongside like PMs and like managers, right, that you have. What is like the relationship really between PMs and software engineers? Do they just tell you what to do, or do you have the freedom to kind of figure out your own things? Yeah. I'll give you guys a second to think about.
I think I can start. I think my two experiences between the companies were very different, because at Twitter, my PM was like so spread thin that I never even met them. So like I'm gonna disregard that entirely actually. But while I was at Lyft, I was doing like government work. So my PM was giving me like specific instructions on what was written in the legislation. And therefore there's a little bit of leeway in how we can interpret specific words, because people can't actually like say you have to do X very well. So there's a little bit of leeway, so we can push back on certain things. If it's saying like, oh, we need this product to, or this feature to aggregate the stuff, all the data from the last year, you can say, oh, from the last 12 months aggregated, or like specifically 365 days, those kind of things. So you can push back a little there, but because it was very regulatory, it was kind of prescribed in what we had to do, which is very different from some other teams.
I guess I can go next. Yeah, so I've been on like product teams in the past with the PMs. And I don't know if people know, but like on infra teams, there's not really a PM. And like kind of the engineers act like their own PMs and they kind of decide what they want to build, or like what's needed. And to be honest, life is like easier with a PM. And I think most engineers understand that, because like without it, you have to get like buy-in from so many parties and like across different teams. If your code touches their team, then you need them to say okay, or like they might have like opinions, and like everyone has different opinions, and it's just like getting all that together and like getting a plan together is like a lot of work that you probably don't want to do if you're an engineer, or like if it's not your job. So it's probably a lot of times it's like it's not really like a adversarial thing. It's more of a like they help us do the parts of the job that like they're probably better at and like can get things going faster.
Right.
I don't know if that's everyone's experience though.
Yeah, I could go go next. I think like some like observations I noticed about PMs is that like they get blamed when it's not their fault. They also get credit when it isn't their work. So take that as you will. And like I think like a nice thing that PMs usually do is like they like shield you from like the business side of it, which is like awesome, because you like as an engineer, if you like want to have a say in the business part of it, you can like talk to your PM about like, you know, what you should prioritize and all that, and you can like build it out and all that. But like in terms of like the, you know, business side of the company, like they'll just shield you from like kind of criticism and all that. Which, like, I think what a PM should do is like kind of protect the kind of that, like I guess the integrity of the team, and kind of make sure that like the team is like working on what they prioritize. And yeah, so I think like the PM does like is kind of like a catch-all bucket for like a lot of functions of an engineering team that like the engineers don't need to worry about. And with that comes like a whole bucket of issues, but also benefits.
I guess on my end, for better or for worse, I've actually never worked with a PM across all my teams, so no real input here.
Oh, interesting. Wait, I didn't even know that's a thing. I thought you always had to like, okay, well, I learned something new today. Yeah. Oh, what's the work-life balance actually in your current company or like past internships over the summer? I'm sure it's different from full-time as well. Yeah, just like work-life balance in tech.
I guess I can go. Internships at Asana, I think they're really chill. Like I think I've worked like less than 40 hours a week during my internships at Asana. And those were like pretty chill. And that Figma is around the same, but I work 40 hours now, or like I try to. Yeah, and I would say in general, it's pretty good, but I also chose my companies knowing that they had good work-life balances.
Smart.
Yeah, I would say generally, I think as an intern, you have really good work-life balance. And also I know that people on my teams, like full-time people, also had good work-life balance, aside from when they were on call. So when you're on call, anytime there's a problem with your service, you have to wake up in the middle of the night or whenever it is and fix the problem. So you have 1 week that's like hell, and then the rest of it, or if it's like a bad week, because sometimes like you don't have any problems with your service and it's fine, but if you do have problems with your service, you're going to be woken up at like 2 a.m., 4 a.m. and have to deal with that, and then hopefully go back to sleep and then do your day job. But aside from that, my teams were very generous with PTO, and like one of my engineers on my team had really strong burnout beforehand. So she talked with her manager and the team, and she got like, we had unlimited PTO at Lyft, so she took a few weeks off. So generally very good. Just plan around your on-call weeks.
Also wanted to add, like, sometimes like on-call isn't, I think it's kind of team dependent for on-call. Some teams, like my team, does like, when you're on-call week, you don't do any like sprint work. It's just like you're on-call, and that's like your responsibility for the week. But it's really team dependent. I know some teams like on-call is like real bad, and it's like not fun.
Yeah, I can go next. So I think work-life balance through my past internships, I'll talk about like Amazon and Coinbase specifically. I think they've generally been pretty good. You work around from 9 to 6, and there's no kind of pressure to work beyond that. But then again, I would say work-life balance is pretty team dependent. What I say might not apply to everyone else. But one thing I will say is that you can typically see coworkers working up until maybe like 8 p.m. because they're grinding for promotions or trying to meet a deadline. So don't be surprised if you do see people working late.
Yeah, I just echo what the other panelists said. That on-call sucks sometimes. You're in the blender or spin cycle, and you just have to like fix stuff. But like, you also take solace in the fact that like, as the on-call person, or at least in my experiences, like you aren't expected to solve all the problems right away. Like you're basically just a router, right? Like if you do know how to solve it, that's great. But like if you don't know how to solve it, you need to maximize like, you need to minimize time per ticket. So kind of you got to route that somewhere else. So if another team like has more context and like they made the problem, then like probably should send it that way. So I think people like have this assumption about on-call, but I think the other panelists have said, like it really is dependent on your team and stuff, and like it isn't as bad as it seems, but it can get really bad.
Of course, yeah. Like any job, really. Yeah, that's good to hear though. Okay, we're getting a couple questions in chat. I have one final fun question, I guess, to end my part up, and then we'll pass it off to anyone just want to drop questions in chat, and we'll just have like an open Q&A at the end. So finally, I guess, what do you guys enjoy most about working in software? Like, is coding actually fun to you guys, or is there more to it? Yeah. Or maybe you don't enjoy coding, but
I can go. I think I do enjoy coding. But I think one of like the best things about working in software is that like you can make a small change, even as an intern, and like that change will get like kind of sent all over the world, and like everyone will use it. Everyone who uses your like app will use it, and it's just like it feels like you have a lot of impact. Well, like it feels that way. I don't know if you actually do. But it's a good feeling when you like see your change in production, or like you see like the graphs go down with all the errors, or like something like that. It's just like small hits of dopamine, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, I also like that when you do something right, like you can see that you did something right. Like it actually, either it works, or you can like see the changes in production, or it just doesn't yell at you and the IDE anymore. I totally agree with that dopamine rush, aside from also making money. So those are the two things that I think drive people towards software engineering.
Yeah, I think on my end, it's also very similar. Like I like solving problems on a daily basis, but like I don't want it to be too easy or like too hard. I feel like software engineering provides that like variety of problems. And then aside from the money and whatnot, there's free food. I'm a sucker for that. But yeah, that's it for me.
I think one more thing that hasn't been said that I appreciate is that like you get to work with like a lot of smart people, and not just like engineers. I think like all at these tech companies you get to work with like people who are just know a lot, and like whether they're like PMs or like people on the business side and your other like fellow engineers, like you just like learn a lot about like how they solve problems and like communication skills and all that. And I think that's just super useful, even if you don't want to be a software engineer in the future. Like there's just like such a high concentration of intelligent people in software engineering. So that's like really nice to learn from them.
Nice. That's lovely to hear from you guys. We'll go through some questions people sent in chat now. Got a first one from Amir here. Do you folks think PM should be 𝗲𝗍 too? Our panelists are software, but do you guys have any opinions on your PMs also having a software or I guess 𝗲 background?
I can go if no one else wants to go. I have a hot take. I think like the general mindset is that like it doesn't have to be like whatever like you're I think they should at least know like basic, they should have at least had like an internship in like 𝗲. I feel like it's hard to like kind of get the roadmap consolidated and everything if you don't know, if you don't kind of at least understand what the engineers are trying to build. And I guess like the level of technicality goes up and down depending on what team you're PM for or like what company you're working for. But I think in general, I think they should. But I know that's a very hot take, and I have no credentials to back up this hot take.
Does anyone else have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I semi agree with Matthew. I think it's super helpful if they know how to code. But I think it's also like super team dependent. Like if you're on like an infra team, I guess, like yeah, it's super helpful if your PM knows how to code and like knows how to read code and like all that. So like they're not just like a scrum master. So I feel like that's like a joke. Like sometimes PMs are just like glorified scrum masters and they just like had dole out tickets to engineers. And I think like if you're on like a really user focused or user facing like product, like for example, I would imagine like or like Instagram reels or something like super focused like on the marketing side of it. I think it helps if your PM knows how to code, but it probably helps a lot more if they know like the marketing side of it, or if they were like a product marketing manager, or if like they were on they interface with that. But like again, I think at the core, PMs should at least know like some analytical like quantitative skills like SQL or something like that, so they can like kind of work with data at the very least. Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at for that.
Yes, I agree with both of you guys. That's my take. We got a question from Steven here. This is a really popular question. So anyone would like to answer this, but basically it's how you landed your first internship. I think it's really popular in tech to ask like if it's a numbers game or if networking really matters for tech. Do you guys want to give this a shot? Or I can take it
first.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
In terms of landing your first internship, I think networking actually matters a lot. And the reason why I say that is because there's kind of, you have like nothing to back yourself up in terms of experience. And especially for Canadian companies, like I know all the banks, TD, RBC and whatnot, to get into the interview process, I think it's pretty networking heavy. I don't think I know a lot of people who gotten into the interview process through like cold applying. So one thing I recommend if you want to land your first internship is probably go to hackathons like HackWestern. There's always like that sponsor section where you can network with recruiters, and that's your time to shine and sort of stand out from the crowd. But yeah, that's just those are my thoughts.
I would just like to talk about that because I worked at RBC in second year and I cold applied. The caveat is I won a hackathon, and I think the guy my mentor was just there. I never like talked to him or anything, but it could be that that's kind of networking, but I also didn't like. I'm not sure if I would say networking is super relevant in that case. I don't know. Those are my 2 cents there. But I definitely am an advocate for the shotgun approach, where you just apply everywhere and hope something happens.
I can go next. Yeah, +1 on the Hack Western thing. You guys should all go to Hack Western. It's a great event. Unbiased source as a past organizer, but even if you have like $5 spare, you should like donate it to Hack Western. I just think it's a great cause. But other than that, I think my first internship was like I did research at Western. I was a Western student. And that was just like I made friends with my TA, my CS TA, and I just like convinced him to give me a job. Honestly, I didn't really do a lot of networking because I'm really bad at networking. So like I wouldn't even get anything when I networked. I would just like, yeah, I'm not a very networky type of person. So I didn't get a lot from networking. But yeah, like not or like networking events. I mainly just like did that. And then I think I had a few friends who like had internship roles. And then I just did those. But also I didn't get a lot of interviews. I only got like 1 or 2 a year, which was yeah, probably a result of my not networking. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think networking definitely will get you a lot of good connections, maybe a couple interviews, but in the end, like you still gotta pass the interview to be able to, like, you gotta be able to code, right? To pass the interviews. So I guess for people that don't have internships, or actually this kind of our next question, is like, how did you guys all become so good at coding? Because I'm sure it's not just school courses. Like, do you guys grind lead code for fun, or what's the special secret here?
Yeah, I live, breathe, and sleep thinking about lead code. No, I honestly don't think I'm actually very good at coding. Like, definitely in 3rd year, I think I was just really good at technical interviews, and that's how I got my job. And then I became good at coding-ish on the job. So I don't know if I was super good getting into the job, but I was just good at technical interviews. So that's my 2 cents. But I did leak code to get to the interview, so that is something extra. But definitely I would not just do school courses. I would do hackathons, internships, or not internships before your internships, side projects, and make sure that you have confidence, at least some sort of confidence in your coding abilities before you get into the interview, because I think that just makes you, it helps you project more confidence in the interview and will probably raise your chances of actually getting in.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Wait, okay, just to clarify, like being good at like your job versus being good at lead code versus being good at school are like 3 completely different things. Like they don't relate at all. And like it's like I think people need to be aware of that, because it's like 3 separate games you're playing. Like being good at school is like one path of like doing well, and that's like requires whatever you need to do well at school, like we're working with other people, like figuring out like how to like study well and stuff. Being good at lead code is just like taking one course of data structures and algorithms and being really good at that, and just like just keep on doing problems until like you're just an insane pattern matcher in an interview, and you can just like do a lead code hard instantly. That's like one different path. And then like another path is like your actual job where you're actually coding and you're making stuff, and that's like completely different as well. So like do not stress if like you are like bad at one. Like you just like need to like pass the bar of each of them. Okay, like get a decent grade at school, like pass your interview, and then it's your job, and like do work at your job and like make your manager happy. So like you don't need to be like really good at everything. You just need to like be good enough at each of these different races that you're competing in.
True. Sorry.
You can go.
No, go ahead,
I
Matthew,
was just gonna
please.
put my 2 cents. I think for me, I got most initially it was all through like side projects and hackathons, like Hack Western. But but yeah, it was all through side projects and just like hacking stuff together to like get some like small thing working. And then yeah, LeetCode is just like pattern matching, but I would say it does help if you like understand, like truly understand like how the algorithms work and why you do each step. But then I would say like my first real internship, like when I joined and I started working, like it's just like I realized I knew nothing. And it's just like when you join these big companies and they have these like huge code bases, like you realize that like you really don't know much. Like you know maybe the syntax and like that's it. And then everything else is kind of like implanted in you in through like the internship. And it's like that's like when I would say the most learning is done during like your internships.
Matthew, you and Connie both mentioned side projects to do. Have you guys like what side projects did you guys make? Did you do with friends, or how did you even come up with the idea?
Yeah, a lot of my side projects were really dumb. I think just like things I wanted to see in the world. Like I think remember HQ. I don't know if people in this chat were too young for this, but like HQ trivia. Do you remember like in my first like 4 or 5 years ago? Like they would like every 9 p.m. there'd be like a trivia game, and then I was like I kept losing, so I just made a bot that like did it for me, and that was like one of like the side projects that like I feel like got the most traction in like interviews and stuff like that. And it was just like things that you want to see in the world. Like I wouldn't say like, yeah, it was very helpful or anything. It was just like fun to make.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had that many side projects just because I didn't really want to code any more than I had to. I think most of my side projects were just like, okay, I want to try to do this like new language. So for example, at one point I was like, I kind of want to learn Swift. So what if I just made like a unit converter? And so I made a unit converter and it was really easy, but like I got some of the syntax down and I was like, wow, this is cool. So it doesn't have to be like extravagant as to making a whole ass bot that does your HQ trivia for you, but it like even with something like a unit converter, you can still talk about that in an interview. So I just wanted to say that it doesn't have to be huge. The scope can be really small.
Cool. Wait, Will, Ange, do you guys have any interesting side projects?
Nothing too interesting on my end, but I will say like in terms of coming up with an idea for side projects, I'm really lazy, so usually I just search up side project ideas on Google, or if I'm even lazier, I just go on YouTube and I find a video and like I follow along with it. Because usually I make side projects to like learn new skills. So if I follow along and I learn that skill and I put it on my resume, that's like good enough for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, wait, Amir asked exactly how much lead code is enough lead code. Honestly, bro, you can never do too much lead code. Just do enough lead code until you get a job. That's I hopefully wait, do you guys have anything to add on to that?
I would say like there's a point where it's enough. I don't know. I stopped doing lead code like 2 years ago. But like after a while, like you just like know it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like you just like understand how to do these problems and you've seen enough of them. And if you feel you're at the point, then like I feel like you start focusing on like other stuff, like your behavioral interview or like like other stuff. I don't know, but that's just like my 2 cents.
I mean, I find that every year I forget how to lead code. It's not like I don't remember some of the patterns. It's just I do lead code again to like jog my memory. But I just think if I can do like a couple of mediums decently, I'll just obviously it's gonna ramp up right before I get to an interview, but if I'm like good enough, I'll just start applying and see where it goes. Because I kind of need that like stress of my interview is in 2 days in order to actually start really lead coding. So
Dylan, oh sorry.
Yeah, I guess like if you're asking how much lead code you need to do, you might be the type of person like me where it's like you might set like an arbitrary number, or someone might tell you a number like, oh hey, you should do like 100 questions. You go do them, and you have like interviews coming up, and then you'll feel like you'll perpetually feel like you'll never be prepared enough. So like you just keep on doing them. So I feel like you'll just like you should just like set a goal, like try to get to that goal, or like do a certain amount a day or whatever, and then like you'll never fully be confident in like if you feel like you've done enough lead code, but hopefully like you should just do enough where like it's kind of just like riding a bike, right? So like you know how to do it when the test comes. So like don't worry too much about like meeting some kind of bar or whatever, because like doing lead code in practice versus like being in an interview are like kind of different anyways, because like you're under different pressure and different like scenarios and environments. So like, just to do enough that like where you feel like you're being productive and you're learning and you're growing. And yeah, just leave it at that.
Great. We'll finish off soon. We got a couple more shorter questions here. Have you guys ever capped on your side projects before? Anyone want to take that?
I don't want to sound old, but what's capped?
Have you ever like lied on your side projects? Like, actually, I can give an example even. Like when I did my RC interview, I wrote on my resume that I was working on a 𝗪𝗀𝘀 side project with like a couple friends, but I literally just made a repo on my GitHub. Like that's all I did. There's like no code in it. But like they ate it up. Like I told them what my plan was and all that. So personally, I have lied about side projects, but what about you guys?
I wouldn't say that would be lying. I think that would be stretching the truth, and stretching the truth is a-okay.
I think personally, I haven't done it, but I just haven't had. Yeah, I had side projects. I just talked about them. I didn't lie about any side project. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, like not to be cynical or anything, but like I feel like at this point, like the path to getting like a job in this industry is like so gamified already that like, it's up to kind of your morals about to like whether or not you want to do something, which is like, people like cheat on like stuff and they kind of lie on their resume and all that. And like I feel like it's just up to you how far you are okay with stretching the truth per se or all that, and like whether you're content in the end. I mean, yeah, like if you're asking like if like stretching the truth by like 10% is gonna get you a job, might increase your like odds like by 0.0001% at the end of the day. So like honestly, like just like do whatever you think you're okay with doing in terms of like kind of showing the best like view of you, I guess, when you're applying to jobs, whether that's like your resume or like what you talked about, your experiences and lead code and all that. So yeah.
Nice. 𝗪𝗲𝗬 asked in chat, what language do you guys recommend doing your interviews in?
Python.
Simply.
Python, and it's not even debatable at this point. It's just like the sad truth is like Python is just so much better in terms of like getting up to speed and scripting things out, and like it's just like a no-brainer. Yeah, Python.
Personally, I do it in Python, but I honestly think you should just do it in like the language you're most comfortable in. I know someone who does it in TypeScript, and like that, and like some people do it in Ruby. So like just if they're really comfortable in that, it's not worth learning another language where you'll get things mixed up. Just do it in the language you're most comfortable with. I know some companies make you do it in like the language they use. like they make you do in C++ or whatever. But those are like more special companies, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say I also use Python, and you should use whatever programming language you're comfortable with. But I would, if you are like really comfortable with like C or C++, and you have to worry about like memory and that kind of stuff while you're in the interview, I feel like you just have to make sure that you're like really comfortable with having to do all this extra stuff when you have a short time frame. So that's the caveat for like lower level languages.
It should feel like second nature. Like you shouldn't have to think about it. If you can get to that point with any language, then you're fine.
I also just want to second the Python point just because I'm going to send this link again, but there's this guy called 𝗞𝗲𝗽 who solves all these LeetCode questions that are pretty useful, and he uses Python. So if you want like a resource to follow
This
along,
guy,
yeah,
oh, sorry.
Python's pretty good.
Yeah, these are amazing resources. Yeah, I would definitely save these links in chat, guys. We have another question from Sarah here. How many languages are enough to land your first internship? At least one.
You gotta have 20 plus. If you don't know all the languages, then you won't get a job. But I think no, you don't need any, you just need to know one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely back that. Cool. Wait, we'll probably end this off. Does anyone have any more questions in chat? Just want to type it out? Or did I miss any? I don't think I did. Somebody asked about pay, but it's
Levels
good pay.
FYI.
Yeah. It's possible to coffee chat you guys? Yeah, I mean, all of their LinkedIn's are public. And are you guys open to coffee chat? Okay, sick. Okay,
Sure.
Yeah. All right, we'll close it off here. Well, actually, like one more question to close it off, I guess. Do you guys have any final like tips to give out for just working in 𝗏𝗏 or looking for landing your first internship? Just any life tips in general, then, or getting through school? Yeah. Final words.
If you really hate coding, like think about whether or not you want to do like software engineering, because I feel like it's like not worth it if you hate it. It's not worth it. Wait, sorry, my coworker just asked me about what I just said. Yeah, no, honestly though, like yeah, I think that's just with any kind of field. Like don't do it just because like all your friends are doing it and stuff like that. Just think about whether you like coding or not. And like whether you enjoy, and talk to a lot of people in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add, if you don't like coding and you like tech, there are so many tech adjacent roles that still pay pretty well. Like you don't have to, like, even though software engineers are paid more than like other roles at tech companies, doesn't mean that roles like sales or being a PM or like other kinds of roles. I didn't really look into a bunch of business roles like marketing or whatever. Like they still pay decently well, and you're gonna hate your life less if you really don't like coding.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. I personally, I think like 𝗏𝗏 is like the most boring role if you could get a role at a tech company. So like if you don't like coding, then you're gonna have like a bad time, because it's like, yeah.
Well, Will, do you have any final remarks?
Yeah, I guess if you get burnt out, don't worry, it'll all be okay. Something will come your way.
Very wise.
Love to hear it. Okay. All right, that concludes our panel here. Yeah, reminder. Yeah, we have a raffle giveaway. Please check out that link in chat. Yeah, thank you guys for joining today. And we'll see you at Hack Western. You guys better all come. Thank you. Ciao.